Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on what's new in Qlik Sense in 2020. We are waiting a few more minutes for 11 o'clock and we will get started. So please just wait and we'll get started very soon. Excellent, 11 o'clock. Welcome everybody. My name is Rakesh Shah, work as a principal consultant for ABM Systems. And sorry about that. Wanted to take you through what's new in Qlik Sense that has come out in the 3 releases at the beginning of the year. So last time we ran this was, I think, late last year, November, and September had just been released. And so we want to do an updated session 6 months on and to see what's new and what's been improved. We're going to break this up into a few sections here. We've got the UX UI section, visualizations, some of the connectors and other things that have changed, and some of the associated products around Qlik. This here is just if you are not, associated to Qlik Sense. If you're not aware of those products, it's a really good point to just kind of quickly highlight them. We won't go into too much detail on the products and what they do, but if there is any specific questions, please reach out. I'm happy to assist. So from a UI UX perspective, the first thing that we can see here is there's been a bit of a redesign in the way the navigation flows. So previously, if you wanted to switch between the load editor or the data manager or the model viewer or sheets and insights storytelling, you would come up to the top here. What Qlik have done is move this to what they call a single page navigation. So I am able to switch between the data editor or the sheets, or moving to storytelling and flicking back between the two. By default, the last selected option in the dropdown is what's used. So if I switch to the data manager, when I move back, it goes to the data manager. This just makes it faster than having to constantly go back and switch back up the top here. Also, if you still prefer, you can open a new tab and you can open up the second window in a new tab as you've previously done and allow you to switch between what you'd like to see. The other thing you'll see here is they're putting in more menu items here around functionality for the global navigation, ability to duplicate, delete, export. You still have all the options here. And an incredible change they've made here is the edit sheet button is now orange for those who have edit access. Just makes it, I guess, a bit easier to see. The other thing they've done is have created buttons. These are really useful. We'll also talk about sheet triggers and font family. So here in Button World, they have enabled a huge amount of functionality and styling and formatting into the buttons to allow you to interact or allow our users to interact between doing so. So here you can switch between toggle on and off, you can switch between something, and all this functionality here is enabled. Let's just pick a button here, but you can do 2 things with each button. Firstly, you can navigate, so you can switch to the next or previous sheet, so you can start building some form of navigation either at the top or down the side. You can go back to last sheet, or you could do a website or email, so they could create a support link or find out more information or go to our website. The second piece of functionality here is around actions to perform. So as well as performing navigation functions, you can also set variable values, which is, I think, incredibly powerful. You can clear selection, you can apply a bookmark, you can do a whole number of actions based on that, and you can also build on top of those actions. So you can have multiple actions each time you want to navigate using a button. I will remove those for now. The next piece here is sheet triggers. So what you'll see is as soon as I came to this page, 2 filters were applied based on a bookmark. So what that looks like here is when you click on the sheet itself, you will see here under the actions button, you can add an action, apply bookmark, and you can the bookmark, sorry, is called trigger. And so you'll see here the trigger option here. One of the things to keep in mind about the sheet triggers is that if I clear them off and I navigate away and come back, they will reappear. It is every time this sheet is loaded inside Qlik Sense, it will reapply those triggers. It's not good or bad, it's just, it depends on the interaction you want. But I see a lot of use for this in, if you create a dashboard with 5-10 years worth of data, but you want the default view to be current year, there'd be a really cool option there to either set a variable or set the year to the current year or something to that effect, which means that the default view for the user is the current year. And if they want to then go and explore, they have the option to go and remove the filter, change the years, see all the years, whatever the options are there for the end user. But that sheet trigger there is just a quick way to apply a filter for the user on their behalf. And you can also do the same with the buttons. One of the pieces here is around the font family, so the ability to change it from the default font styling to add multiple fonts, which is quite a useful feature there. In terms of visualizations, so we're going to look at tables, we're going to look at charts, some new visualizations and improvements to visualizations. But before we go down that path, we'll just take a quick step back into what Qlik has done through the course of mostly 2019. They have gone through and added a number of new visualizations to their primary charts lists. You'll see containers here, bullet charts, and a few others, the Nico chart here. They have also got these visualization and dashboard bundles. So this is where the date picker on demand, variable import. So all of these came in previously in 2019, and you will see additional chart functions that have come in here as well. So as part of that, what they're continuing to do is providing additional functionality to each of the tables. So, sorry, for each of the chart functions. So you will see here that tables have been significantly improved. You can highlight over each of the table lines. You can now change the thickness of the scroll bar. Sometimes it was very, very small and actually became quite difficult to get to. So now a nice thick toolbar for the user to see, but also to interact with. The hover on scroll is also available for pivot tables as well. A small little change here is tables with links. Previously, you were able to convert a dimension to a URL and just by changing the selector, but now they've provided the option both ways. Firstly, you can search by a label, so you'll see this is kind of normal behavior, but you also have the ability to search by URL. So this is the URL that's sitting behind the scenes. And if you go into the detail for this, it is just a quick switch. So the field now is just Google and then add category name at the end. And then you want a representation here by link instead of text. And you can add a label or add a URL in the link settings and choose a label to apply over the top. So this allows you to have two different methods of being able to search or add links to an existing table. Another neat feature here is the ability to freeze the first column. And you'll also notice, I don't know if this is something you've seen before, but totals down the bottom. So it used to be previously was the only option up the top. You now have the option to bring it down the bottom. You have the option to turn them off as well, as always. But you can freeze the column for the first, which is really useful, and also see totals down the bottom. So some of the new improvements to tables. So in your straight table, the ability to have spark lines, and this can take and visually look many different ways. So here we have a line chart representing the max and min value inside the spark line. You can just run it as a trend, or you could use bars. There are two options with the bars. You can have a local axis. So the local axis here is what does it look like just for this product name. If you use global bars, it actually provides a relative axis for all of the options inside the list. So as we go down the page and we have smaller numbers here, the bar representation is incredibly thin and small and difficult to see, but it shows them relative to all of the values in the entire data set. And here you'll see the numbers are 408,000. You could present it as dots, and you could present it as positive and negative variances for each month. The other piece here is indicators. So we have the ability to modify the indicators or provide additional status. So let me take you through what that looks like, how they're applied, and how we come up with those. So what we have inside here is when we add a measure, so some sales, we then have the ability to do the mini chart or the indicators. So the indicators are the base section down here, the mini charts are at the top. So if we choose mini charts, we can then choose the dimension by which we'd like to see it. And in this case, we've just chosen month, and then the type. We can choose bars, dots, sparkline, positive and negative, and the color representation. So what does mix, max, min, the line color, first value, last color look like? Do you want to show dots? Do you want to disable dots? And then whether you want a local or global axis or zero baseline. So you can see they've completely simplified the ability to add a sparkline, filter, the dimensionality in which they, simplified the way in which you can show the change. Typically in a sparkline is over time, but it could be by anything in that instance. And all of these are following the same methodology in terms of representation. So you can choose a positive, negative chart, and this will automatically look at previous value to current value by that dimension and determine whether it was an increase or decrease over that period of time. In terms of the indicators here, again, it's in the same section for the, sorry, we'll go back up to here, against each of the metrics. So if I take sales for current year and I wanted to change the representation to a mini chart, we'll try that as an indicator, we can go through and we can do a number of things here. So we could have green and we could have red, and anything that's under 10, try that again. So anything that's under 10 is green, anything that's above 10 is red. And a couple of really cool quick things you can do is you can add symbols. So you can add, that's caution, we could have this is good, and you can then change and apply the color to the value or just the logo. You can actually just remove the values altogether. So you have an option here to change that. And of course, having a function expression editor here, this could be a calculation, this could be anything you want it to be. You could add multiple, you can be as creative as you want in producing the icons to match and the colors to match how you want the sales representation to be. So that one there is purely as much as your heart desires. You can also, of course, put the gradient position in and choose whether you want that on the left or right of the value. So you could infinitely go on and choose whatever you want. A couple of things that have been presented here is kind of a ranking system, but also a status. So what's green, what's red, what's amber in that case. Also, sorry, I forgot to mention up the top, if you do have any questions, please let us know. I'm happy to answer the questions if there's anything along the way. So looking at pivot tables here, one of the neat little features, if you have a huge pivot table with a number of different dimensions, one of the challenges was that when you saved a bookmark, it did not save the state of what was expanded and what was collapsed. Now what you can do is save that state. So by way of example, I've got a pivot table here. So what I'll do, everything here you can see is collapsed. And what I've got here is a pivot table, a bookmark, where I've selected Germany and I have expanded the two country level measures here. And what that does is it saves the state of expansion. And so as soon as I apply that bookmark, it will expand. And off a two-tier system is not a huge benefit, but when you expand that out to a large number of nested dimensions inside pivot table that can become really useful for someone to quickly identify what it is that you're trying to show them, if you're sharing it with someone else, or for you to come back and have a look at it. You will see if I clear that search, those two remain expanded, and allows you to keep moving on with that. They have made a number of changes here for inside the cells. You can now change the colors, change the fonts. You can put background coloring. You can also provide hierarchical coloring. So your top level can have a certain background feel, and then all of the second level will have a different look and feel. So this will allow you to quickly and easily separate visually the differences between the top and the bottom in the hierarchy. Finally, one of the things that have improved is the number formatting when you color by expression. I'm not sure if anyone on the line has previously done this, but if you had, say, a percentage and your formatting was in percentage, so if you had 0.9, it would represent a 90%. However, when you brought this in as an expression and you colored by expression, you would actually see it would show as 0.9 to 0.7. Now you'll see it as 90% to 70%. This is something that is absolutely useful and really, really powerful. One of the things I didn't mention around the buttons on the buttons page was the ability to change it from, instead of being a select value, it is now a search criteria, which is actually quite useful. So here you can here as an example, you'll see greater than or equal to by 2017. So what that looks like in the button is when you choose the action, you select values by a search criteria, you select the field, sorry, excuse me, you select the field which you would like that to apply to, and then the search criteria. This search criteria is the exact same search criteria you would apply if you were to put it into this text box here. So that would provide the value that you need to add into the search box. So that way, where I see this being quite useful is you could provide a default button to say, show me last 30 days, show me last 60 days, 90 days, last 365 days, whatever the value is, and that will be continually be dynamic for the end users to have a look and quickly filter on either a time or could be absolutely anything that you'd like it to be. So it enables the search button. So it could be anything to do with where, and you could put a star, WEAR star, and all of these categories with the word where in it would appear. So moving averages and differences. So one of the new functionalities of a line chart, sorry, excuse me, I'm losing my voice here. One of the functionalities of a chart was the ability to provide what they're calling modifiers to the line chart. So here, if I took an example, we just start a new chart here. So this is exactly the same here. We're starting with a continuous line, and what we're able to do quite quickly, actually, so I'll just go back to this one, is we can duplicate the sales expression, and we can apply a modifier here. Now this modifier can take the form of an accumulation, and what that basically means is range sum. So it will continually add off, and you can do that either by a full range, which means it will continually add every one of these numbers, and it will just add them all together. It can also be a custom, so you can show me 3 month, or in this case it's 3 months, but 3 periods of accumulation. So as soon as it gets to the 4th month, it drops off the 1st month value, adds on the 4th month value, and provides that accumulative average. There's also the ability to have moving average, and what you see here is getting quite complicated. Let me just delete that. So we can look at moving average here, And what moving average can be is over the full range. So this is the continuous moving average. You could do it over a custom range. So if you wanted to show, if you had 10 years worth of data and you wanted to show trailing 12 months, then you could change it to 12 months. Then it will then show a trailing 12 months average. If you want to show quarterly, in this case, the reason why they've used steps is because this is showing by month. And if it was by category, then it would be the previous 3 categories going from left to right. You do have the ability to exclude selected values and include any null values there. You also have the ability to have a look at the actual expression if you ever wanted to see how it was calculated. But as part of this, you can then change to differences, and this will then automatically go positive or negative on the difference between those 2 values. So we'll have, I'm sorry, go back, sorry for a second. So that's this chart down the bottom here. So what this is showing here is between each of the months is the change from the previous month, positive or a negative value, and it shows a very quick way. Calculating these in either set analysis or doing this at the back end was previously complicated or a frustrating process. So now with a couple of quick buttons, you can very quickly produce either an accumulative sum, a difference, or a moving average. And the 4th thing they've added is the ability to provide a relative number. So again, this is something that you could do in calculation. What you'll see here is that this is sum of cos. This is not sum of cos for given category divided by the sum of cos for all categories. What they've applied here is the modifier relative number, and they're disregarding selection in this case and disregarding dimensions. So what that means is that women's wear is 38% of the whole of this number. And if we chose a different value, this will stay as 8% because we don't want selection to be affected. Again, if we chose choose 2015, you will see that it modifies based on what 2015's contribution is to for women's wear to the overall number. You can also provide the percentages across 2 dimensions and respect one of those. So here you've got 2015, what is the total contribution, and what is the quarterly contribution to total sales. As part of this, the way the setting comes up is that it will affect by current scope, it will respect one of the dimensions here, and it will show year. And you could change this to quarter, but then it changes the values because of the accumulation of the values there. You could also disregard all dimensions, and then it will not give you 100% of everything. It's now 100%. If you stacked 2015 on top of 2016, on top of 2017, on top of 2018, will now reach 100%. So this gives you a really nice way to quickly produce percentages without having to write complicated set expressions or building something in the back end. And you could also do something quite cool where you can write a relative number to a specific value. So you can say, I want to show what percentage other categories are away from baby wear in this case. So baby wear being 100% of itself, whereas bath clothes is 50,000, it is 36% of that value, being 147 here. For ladies footwear, it's 106%. Men's clothing, virtually the same number, it's considered 100% with a rounding error there. Women's wear is 488% of that value. So you can now provide in the same table a number relative to something else in that table, which having to write that in set analysis, and you can probably see here from the output expression, it's extremely complicated. having to put all those places in with a whole bunch of functions in there. But now a few clicks of a button and you can get it to look quite nice. And one of the other things that they've brought in here is the trend lines. So this here is a measure on its own. They're just using the drop-down functionality here to switch between the two to not show everything at the same time. So here you've got average, you can use it as a linear, you could do exponential, logarithmic, and power. These are, again, quite easy to do. They're a modifier. The trend line functionality here, you can click on the trend line and choose the type that you want, type in the label, auto colors, have it as dashed or not, and very quick to be able to make those average lines instead of having to write very complex set analysis to do the same thing. Let me show you dashed here. You can also make it a solid line or make it a dashed line. And then colors, you can either pick a color or make it automated. One of the other things they've done here with charts is around line styling. So first major difference is you can have a vertical orientation. So this just switches your dimension measure to the y-axis, your measure to the x-axis. But you can also change for any given line, the thickness of the line, whether it's dashed or whether it's, and in this one here, it's difficult to see, but what they've got in one of the options here is smooth edge, and the other one they've kind of got more pointy edges. It's a small styling change, but you can also have a look at the data points. The way to make all these configuration changes is now in this new section under appearance. You'll see options here for styling. So you can change your data point size, line thickness, all those things that we went through, and you can do it for each of the different measures. So you can do it for all, or you can do it for individual measures and override the specific value. And one of the new areas is this styling feature. So you will see this under presentation for almost all of the major charts that are being used, so pie charts, etc. There are now a whole bunch of styling options to make it look a little bit more presentable. The new visualization that's been brought in here is an org chart. So the closest thing we previously had was this network chart, which isn't a great representation for organizations. It's sometimes a bit difficult to see the hierarchy relationship. And so that's where they've brought in the org chart here. So the org chart here is allows you to expand. Oops. Get out of editing mode, sorry. Allows you to expand and move down to see all of the the people under each person here. So you can move around the org chart, expand, click on someone, and then filter on that user. The other way you can present it instead of this mode is you can see fully expanded, and it allows you to zoom in and zoom out. So I've just seen a question here. What version of Qlik Desktop are you using? So this is June 2020. So the latest version of Qlik Sense. Hope that answers the question. There. Map chart updates, the ability to use images inside the data points. So it allows you to put it there. Also the ability to show and hide different layers within the controls. So previously, if you had all the layers, you'd have to go up into the controls function here and disable and show layers, which was a bit cumbersome, but now you can control that through a button. Also, like in the chart styles, they've also provided formatting in the measures, whether you have it via measures, but also the bubble sizes as well, which is extremely more pleasant to have a look at. Custom tooltip, which is a really nice thing to have, probably something that not everyone has considered, but your standard tooltip will tell you that it's the current dimension is Germany, and sales, which is the measure for this chart, is $500,000. In this version, though, you can actually create and do as much styling and changing, sorry, not styling, but you add as many additional measures as you like. So here, oops, I'll just have to bring that back up. So here I could put in a rank, number 1 of 8 in sales. I put a value in there of 520 million compared to the average of 296 million. Here are all the cities inside Germany. And what that looks like here is going through, and you go to tooltip in the combo section, disable the auto, and you can either hide or show the basic. So the basic rows would be the default ones that you've previously seen. And you can now change the title, and you can build a whole bunch of calculations into that title to have it appear how you'd like. You can change the description here. So we've concatenated a distinct list of the cities, and then you can go and add a number of measures. You can add labels to those measures if you want, or if you want to show how it was calculated, you can leave it without. You can change the formatting, and yeah, go through and add as many as you want. So if you've ever had somebody saying, hey, it'd be really good to have this graph, but I want to see, not only the sum of sales, but I want to see the average. I want to see the number of orders. I want to see how many customers were included. You can now include additional information there. I think that's quite a useful way to increase the amount of information without complicating the visualization. KPIs, a small visual change here. They've allowed a few things to happen. Now, this might look like a complicated slide, but the idea here is you can now set a small, medium, or large size for your KPI. Sorry, you're always able to do that, but how it behaves has now changed. So previously you had responsive, which meant Qlik decided how it was going to appear. If you had a bigger number, it would shrink it down. If you had a smaller, it would bring it up to the biggest available size for small. And what that would look like is if you had a number of KPIs along the top, all set to small, then it would all appear with different font sizes, and it wasn't a great visual look. So you now have two options regarding that. You can have fixed. And what fixed means is it doesn't matter how big this box is, the size will not change. And so these sizes are the same, these sizes again are exactly the same. Or you can choose fluid. And what fluid means is for the same size box, the size will be set, and then it doesn't matter what the value is inside that box, it will all appear the same size. And that will give you a consistent UI experience if you allocate the same amount of real estate to that box. And so the combination of these two, I think, will be really useful for producing that top level KPI along your dashboard or wherever you kind of use it. And if at the moment you're seeing everything at different heights, different shapes, different sizes, this is a really neat way to bring it all into alignment from a visual perspective. I think that makes a lot of sense. And hopefully you guys get a lot of use out of it because this jumping around was sometimes quite annoying. A new visualization that's been added is a bullet chart. And so this here is the ability to show a measure, but against a given criteria for targets. Effectively, it's mostly for target expressions. So you can see that we're currently set a target of 1100, currently at 1422. So you can quickly and easily see that we're exceeding a target measure. You can also apply colors at the back end to show a bonus on top. You can have it in horizontal or vertical methodologies, but it's a new chart functionality and supports the theme, styling, and coloring that you've got. The funnel sort was added. One of the things they didn't allow was for custom sorting. So it automatically sorted from the largest measure to the smallest measure, but that didn't always fit requirements. And so now they've allowed you to sort by either a dimension, a measure, an expression, and both in ascending order or descending order. So this will help with representing the exact way you'd want things to appear. So in this case, it's sorting alphabetically by the dimension product category. Some small little visualization changes. So one here is the ability to share a bookmark. I don't think this is not working in the Qlik Sense desktop version, but in the production version, in the Qlik Sense enterprise version, you are able to grab a link to a bookmark just by going through, clicking on it, and it will appear here as an option, and it will just say copy link. Then you can open a new tab or copy the link for a bookmark. They made some small changes to the filter pane. So one of the changes here is you're able to center align your filter pane. You're also able to copy the cell value, and that way you can then copy it to your bookmark and I don't know, paste it somewhere, I guess, but able to add that into your bookmark. Actually, just as a side note, I'm not sure if everyone knows, but a new feature of a table is the ability to do the same sort of thing. So you can now, inside a table, is copy a cell value as well. So you can take that cell value, take it to a bookmark. This helps, I think, a lot when you're troubleshooting. If you have a list of things, somebody says, hey, that line item, that code, that whatever it is, we need to go look at that in our source system, go look at it somewhere else. You can now copy that value, send it to somebody. It makes it a lot quicker than having to export the list just to get those values out, especially if it's a long, unique, crazy code. So looking at some of the other changes that we've got here, there's been a whole bunch of changes coming in the natural language processing inside the insights area. One of the things that I'm looking forward to is this business logic. This should be really interesting. At the moment, it's only available via API, which is probably going to be a bit of a limiter for most people, but they are talking about future releases where they can have the ability to do it inside the UI, which I think will be quite nice. And this is just adding metadata and information on top of anything inside there, and I think that will help give context to natural language queries, and I think it'll make it really useful for organizations going forward. For anyone who's got international users, there is the ability to look at inside in French, Spanish, or Russian if that is of interest, and they now also can do insight generation on the radar chart as well. A whole bunch of data connectors have either been improved or added. So you now have a Google Analytics and Twitter inside the add-in. So this is using your data manager. You can now add Google Analytics and Twitter directly in there. And there's a whole bunch of add-ons here. Some of these are just for the cloud services for Qlik Sense. Some of them have been existing already for the web connectors and a bunch of fixes as well. Some other functionality here, so around Qlik Catalog. If you're not aware, Qlik have bought a tool which will allow you to integrate with your catalog with, integrate a data catalog, which will have all of your QVDs and your data sets and allow you to directly pull that from your Qlik Sense environment, and you can query it like a shopping cart, which makes that experience of obtaining data or starting your application quite simple. Qlik Alerting, another recent acquisition, is the ability for end users to set alerts. So if they're sitting at a KPI and they say, hey, I'd love to alert when this KPI moves by 5%, or when the target of this value reaches a certain or reduces by a certain value. This is a really powerful alerting solution, which will allow end users to get any number of notifications. Administrators can also can set alerts on behalf of people. So if you don't want your end users having to go in and make all the selections, you could actually create it on their behalf, set it up towards a group as well. We've also got the Insight Bot and Qlik and printing changes, a few things that have happened over the last couple of iterations. So I just wanted to open the floor here. Is there any other questions that you have? If you want, you can type them in the box there, please. Give it a few seconds in case there is a delay on the line. All right. I think that is it. There's no more questions. Got a question here from someone. So yeah, do you have any training that you can run for us on these new features? Yeah, absolutely. You can reach out to us if you do have any questions or would like any more training. We're happy to take you through them. Please reach out to us. So actually I haven't got my email address up there, but r.shah@ABM Systems, or reply to the emails that you'll send and we'll get in touch with you. Thanks very much, everyone. Talk to you soon.